Well, hello there and welcome Dungeon Saga fans. Now today we are continuing with our heroes from the Dungeon Saga Origins board game, and we are painting Melissa Padfoot, the Halfling Rogue. So what we're going to do, same as always, I'm going to block in all the colours first, and then I'll come back and we'll make a start. But the colours I'll be using today, we shall be using Rainy Grave by MSB Paints for the base. We'll be using some Warrior Flesh for the face. We have some Woodstained Brown, which will be going over all the main areas of the miniature. We got some Jungle Moss, which is a nice dark green, and I'll be going over the cloak and everywhere. And we have some Shadow Silver, which will be going over the knife. So I'll get all these colours blocked in, and I'll come back and we'll make a start. But I'll give you a little 360 of the miniature first. It's another beautiful little sculpt, the Halfling Rogue. So I'll come back in a couple of secs and we'll go over the highlighting of the miniature. All the blocking of colours has been finished, and as you can see, it's already looking fab. So we've got that nice dark wood-stained brown all over the main body areas, and we have the jungle moss over the cloak there, and the shadow silver, and also we've got our grey, our rainy grey for the base for our dungeon base, and our warrior flesh for the face as well. Now the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to add an ink wash, because I want to get the actual face done first, because once the eyes are done on this face, which is the centerpiece of this model, we can move on from there. So all I've got is some Flesh Wash by Army Painter, and I'm just going to add that over the whole of the warrior flesh, just letting the actual ink wash go into the recesses of the face, and just taking away any excess, just so it's dark around the sockets of the eyes like so. And that's all we need to do, and we'll just leave that to dry, and then we'll come back and paint those eyes in straight away. Okay, so let's get these eyes painted in. Now I'm going to be using my 20 brush. This is the brush I use for eyes. This is from Reaper Miniatures. This is the Reaper Pro Paint, and it's a 20 brush. And as you can see, absolutely tiny, but a perfect little point, and absolutely fantastic for doing eyes. So what we got here, we got a little bit of white, so we got a tiny bit of pure white on the brush, and we're just going to add that nice and close so you can see what we're doing, and just two little eyes, one there and one there, just like so. So that's the eyes. All we need to do now is I'm just going to clean my brush, and then we'll go straight into the black. With the minimal amount of paint, it actually dries instantly. So we're going into some pure black, and we just got the tiniest little bit on the end of our paint brush here, and again it's a case of just a tiny touch. There's one. And there's two. So there's our little eyes, absolutely tiny, but it makes all the difference to our miniature. So all we got there is our white and a tiny dot of black in the middle. So next is the highlighting of the nose and the forehead. Now for that, we are going into our warrior flesh, and we're just mixing in a little bit of a very small amount of white with our warrior flesh, just so it's a small highlight on the face. So all I'm doing is mixing a tiny bit of that white we just used for the eyes. I'm using a different brush now. I'm going back to my Army Painter brush, and on my palette here I'm just mixing a tiny bit of the warrior flesh with some white, just so it's a little bit lighter than what we used on the initial wash. And all we do with this is just a tiny little bit onto the nose. This will just highlight where the light's hitting the nose, and a tiny bit on the forehead, just there. And that's all the highlights we need for this little face. And that's all I want to do to that. That's perfect. So the light's just hitting the top of the nose and the top of the forehead, tiny little bit, and the eyes are just peeking through. Very, very happy with that one. Okay, so next we're going to highlight the brown on the actual body. As you can see, I've already added the shadow silver to all the metal areas. All the metal areas will be covered with a black ink wash. But what we'll do is we're going to use our wood stained brown. We're going to add some white to the wood stained brown and just highlight certain parts of the miniature with the wood stained brown, and then I'll be going over the whole miniature with some dark brown ink wash. I'll be adding black ink wash to the base. But let's go through the actual highlighting of the clothes, the brown. It's not much needed on this miniature now. The face is the most important part. The rest of the miniature we're trying to keep that ultra dark because it's a halfling rogue, so they're in the shadows, so we're looking for a dark miniature. Okay, so just for the little highlights on the brown, all we're doing is we've got the wood stained brown, which is our initial dark brown, and all I've done is I've added some white to the brown just to make it a little bit lighter. And what we're doing, we're just working our way around the shoulder pads, and this is just a little hint of a lighter colour on certain parts of the miniature. There's a bag on the side here. We can just do the top of the bag, and there, and the corners of the bag, just to add a little bit of a worn feel to the bag. And the strap there, so just the top of the strap, there's just a little tiny bit of light going across there. And just here. There we are. It's just a lighter brown of our original colour. We just added a little bit of white, and again, of course, it's given us a nice little reflection. There we are. Yeah, perfect. Okie dokie. Now, what I'm going to do while I'm still here is I'm quickly going to use that brown. I'm going to quickly grab a dry brush, and what we're going to do, I'm going into the wood stained brown, and I'm just taking the wood stained brown off my dry brush quickly. And what we want to do here is on the actual cloak there, we're just going to add this dry brush to the bottom of the cloak. This is a fantastic way to make the cloak look more worn and look like it's been dragging through the dirt. So all we're doing is just adding a nice little dry brush to the bottom of our cloaks. A lot of people forget to do this with miniatures, and they got a super minty fresh cloak which hasn't got any worn at the bottom where it's been dragging along the floor. Now if you've got any adventurers that have been in dungeons, of course their clothes are going to be manky and dirty. They've been, you know, anyone with a cape is going to be dragged along the floor. It's going to have dirt and moisture picked up. So by just adding this little dry brush to the bottom of your capes, depending on what colour your floor is, but normally the dirt is always going to be like a very, very dark brown. So we just keep them going over like so, and that's our cloak looking fab. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I am going to finish off the base, and I'm going to give you a 360 of the finished miniature. Next week we shall be moving on to the next miniature. Let's have a look. Let's have a quick look-see at what's left on our list. of miniatures to do. Okay. We have Fenarel Duneborn. Let's go for this one. So next week we've got the Elf Warlock. We'll do the Elf Warlock. And this will be next week's miniature. So enjoy the 360. Lots of love to every single one of you. And I shall see you next time.